This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hello and welcome to Working Like Dogs on Pet Life Radio. Thank you for joining us. We're your hosts. My name is Marcie Davis, and my co-host is my amazing little service dog, Lovey. And we're excited to be with you to talk about our favorite subject, working dogs and working animals. And today we're excited to be talking with Josh Aronson. He's a writer, producer, and director. And today he's going to talk with us about his awesome new documentary, To Be of Service. And this is a feature documentary that explores really complex stories of veterans who have post-traumatic stress disorder. And it also covers those amazing service dogs that they're partnered with. So really awesome. So come back right after these quick messages as we welcome Josh Aronson to the show.
It's designerpetsweaters.com. Hand-knitted designer sweaters for your precious pup or cool cat. Beautiful couture patterns for your pets, including custom-knitted formal wear, casual wear, yachting, and even sports-themed. Many designer pet sweaters include feathered tammy hats, top hats, and a lot of sparkle. Each sweater includes leg loops, front paw sleeves, and leash opening. Visit designerpetsweaters.com to order your four-legged fashions today. Your pets will stay warm for the winter and be runway ready. Large or small, we fit them all. designerpetsweaters.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Working Like Dogs on Pet Life Radio. We're so excited to have Josh Aronson with us today. Hello, Josh, and welcome.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, we're so excited to talk about the incredible film that you've just finished. We're so excited about To Be of Service. It's so wonderful and definitely right up our alley. So we want to know, I mean, you wrote it, you directed it, you produced it. What inspired you, Josh, to make this film about veterans with PTSD and their service dogs?
Well, I was asked to consider a film on this subject about 2 years before I actually said yes. And at the time, I found it so difficult to imagine spending the time and energy it would take to do it in the world of veterans with PTSD. I mean, I love dogs, and that was a big attraction. But I knew that at root, the film was really about veterans with suffering from PTSD, and I know what trauma is. So it gave me pause, and it just didn't seem like the right time. But a couple of years went by, and the person whose idea it was, Julie Sayers is her name, came back to me, and she said, you are really the right person to do this, based on conversations we'd had and other films I'd done. And in that time, I really had come to terms with what trauma was. I learned a lot about it, and I came to the conclusion that everyone has experienced some kind of trauma. So it's really a universal experience of human beings. Whether it's just being bullied on a schoolyard, which is hugely traumatic for teenagers, for instance, or whether you had, sexual abuse or rape or a terrible accident that you experienced, there's been trauma in almost everyone's life. And PTSD from combat is certainly a much bigger deal than a lot of kinds of traumas, but it's universal. So when veterans finally get a service dog to add on to their experience at the VA, which is largely medication, sometimes and often over-medication, talk therapy, group therapy, all of those things from the VA don't seem to be universally really effective. But getting the service dog, in my experience in making the film and in my conversations with many people, getting a service dog is like a magic bullet. It adds to the overall therapy modalities that are aimed at PTSD and trauma, and it's incredibly effective. And to me, there's a universal element to that story, which is that we all have to come to terms with the trauma we've had and do something whatever it is, whatever the modality of treatment that lets us get back to our life. And in the case of these soldiers, it's the dogs. And so that was a very powerful element. But for all of us, we have to do something, whether it's therapy, whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's retreats, or just inner contemplation and relaxation. So there's a universal aspect to this film, and that's really what attracted me to it, because I wanted it to be a larger experience for people.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. It does translate to so many different things in our lives, and to get to see how these dogs impact the veterans and how they change completely. But I get what you're saying about how that could be daunting to think about creating a film about that, because it is such a sensitive and difficult topic that I'm sure would take a long time to film and capture. So how did you select the veterans and their dogs that were included in the film?
Well, there's many veterans in the film who have dogs. Everyone in the film has a dog, and it's a service dog that helps them with their PTSD. But we wanted the spine of the film to be several veterans who we meet before they get their dog, and we find the situation they're in with struggling with their PTSD. And then we follow them to get the dog, and then commit to follow to see how they do. In one case, for a year, we did that. So the way we did it is to triangulate onto soldiers, veterans who were going to get a dog. So we went to the dog training facilities, and we told them what we were doing, asked them if they would connect us with veterans who were willing to talk to us, who were going to get a dog in the next month or 2 or 3, so that we could meet them and go shoot them before they actually get their dog. That was the trick for us. And now, of course, veterans with PTSD are in a difficult state, and the ones before they get a dog are in an especially difficult state. And to make a film about the impact of getting a dog, we wanted to see a change. We wanted to see an arc. So in talking to the veterans before they got dogs, the ones that were really isolated, the ones that were really struggling, the ones that perhaps had tried to commit suicide once or more times, those would be the most interesting to us, because they're struggling more and more evidently. And so most veterans in that state didn't want to talk to a film producer and have a camera stick in their face. That's for sure. But I'd say from each of the training facilities that we worked with, each one sent us 1 or 2 that were willing to talk to us. And that's how we met them. And I would call them on the phone, and if they seemed possible and they seemed open to the idea of it, I would hop on a plane and I'd go meet with them. And so we ended up focusing in on 2 of those people, well, 3 ultimately, but 2 of the 3 ended up in the film. Greg from Long Island, who was near my home in New York City, so that was very convenient. But he was a great case for us. And Tom Flood in Billings, Montana, turned out to be a wonderful subject. And both of them, when we met them, were really isolated, were really struggling. Tom was married and had a child, and his child held him up. I mean, really strongly held him up. But he was suffering, and he could hardly leave his home. And Greg was a shut-in. I mean, he was really one of those vets who was struggling mightily, never left his home except to go to a supermarket at 3 o'clock in the morning when there was no one around. That was a typical story. And, and then would get on a train and go to the VA. And it was so traumatic for him to go to the VA twice a week that each day it took him an entire day to recover from the difficulty he encountered on the subways and the onslaught of stimulation, and it was extremely difficult for him. So in both cases, we filmed them before they got their dogs, and then filmed them when they got their dogs, went with them for the 2 weeks of their engagement with the dog trainers, watched the change begin at that point, because, you can't have a dog, licking on you and loving you up and not respond. And we saw it happening so fast. It was just unbelievable. And then we went home with them. And the first day home, when they got home with their dog, we filmed that moment when the dog was introduced to his new home. And we filmed both of them, one for about 6 months and one for about a year, to see the change.
Wow. And that's so cool that you're able to witness that, and not only witness it, but to capture it on film, because it is pretty magical, that relationship and how that relationship, and as you said, it immediately starts to bloom when you are this loving, beautiful, healthy dog, just thinks you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's pretty amazing to see that. So what did you see right away from those experiences? How did things start to change based on what you saw initially, and then once the dog came into their life?
Well, the first thing we saw was simply that the veterans would smile for the first time. You'd see a change in their demeanor that was so different from everything I'd seen in the trip to their home before. I never saw big smiles. I never saw their body language kind of being comfortable. And the dogs, they'd be paired with the dogs. They were nervous about being away from their nest, at home. But the dogs would come and cuddle and jump in their laps and be with them. And as the bonding began, you could just see a relationship forming. There was no judgment. It was completely unconditional from the dogs, and it began to form. And you saw the smiles. That's what was the big change. You could see that they were actually letting themselves forget about their issues, let go of their past for an instant, and be with this animal that didn't care what they had done, or didn't care, what they've seen, or what their guilt was, or what their shame was just there, laughing, wagging his tail, jumping all over you, ready to be loved. Every one of the vets that we filmed and all the stories we heard from the many, many vets in the film who had gotten their dogs, it was the same story. It was so quick. It was quite remarkable. And one of the experts in the film, there's several trauma therapists and psychiatrists, and one of them in the film is named Dr. Maggie O'Hare, who had done a longitudinal study on the impact on veterans with PTSD who get a service dog. And she reported in this study that within 3 weeks, there was measurable change in the symptoms of PTSD. It took 3 weeks only together, and already they started to improve and they could measure it. It's like a magic bullet. It's remarkable.
Yeah, it's a magic bullet that's pure love with no side effects and no other than love and hugs, right? Right.
Exactly. And the fact that the VA hasn't already begun to, pay for the dogs for veterans with PTSD is it's a crime. It's a stain. And we've been working very hard with members of Congress to push through the Paws Act, which is the bill that will mandate that the VA pay for dogs for vets. And the House just passed it after we screened it in Washington. And I went with 3 of our vets to the House of Representatives, and we lobbied many representatives to co-sponsor the bill. And I'm very proud of this, that Representative Steve Stivers and Mikey Sherrill, who were the 2 sponsors of the bill in the House, got in touch with us after the fact, saying that they think it was the film and our events in Washington that pushed it through so rapidly, and they acknowledged us for that, and that felt really great.
Oh, wow, Josh. That's like getting the hugs and kisses from the dogs, hearing something like that. That's pretty amazing that you could have that kind of impact. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, that is pure magic. Well, you hold that thought, Josh, because we're going to take just a quick break and hear some important messages from our sponsors, who we love also. But we're going to come right back, and we want to keep talking with you about this wonderful film and all the great things that you've uncovered and that you're showing us. So it's so exciting. So come right back.
I have 2 dogs, Sam and Bailey. Both are golden retrievers. Poor Sam, he was a mess. Always itching. His paws were soaking wet all day from just constant licking. He had bald spots on his back. I just don't like putting shots and steroids into your dog all the time. DINOVITE.com. Dinovite is nutrition. Probably 2 weeks after he started Dinovite, I started seeing great improvements, and today 99% of his issues are non-existent. It's amazing stuff. Since Bailey has been 12 weeks old, he's been a Dinovite dog, and he has 0 issues today. He won't eat his food without Dinovite. When I get out the Dinovite, my dogs actually salivate, like I'm getting them a treat. They drool over it. Dinovite is the best thing you can do for your dog.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
I get my Dinovite from DINOVITE.com.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life
PetLifeRadio.com.
Radio.
Welcome back to Working Like Dogs on Pet Life Radio. And we're visiting today with Josh Aronson about his new film, To Be of Service. And before the break, Josh, you were telling us about the work that you're doing with the Paws Act. Tell us a little bit more about that and how we as voters and members of the community can support that, because it's so important, this legislation.
Well, as I said, the bill was passed by the House, which is fantastic. And now, as everybody knows, the process is it has to go to the Senate. And there's good support for it in the Senate, but not universal. And this bill, the Paws Act in different forms, has been around since 2011, when Senator Al Franken actually brought it up originally. And it's not been able to be passed. It's been blocked by different committees for various reasons. So the best thing we can do now is for everyone to get on the phone, get on your email, get in touch with your local senator, not the state senator, but the U.S. senator from your state, and say, please support the Paws Act. It's coming to a vote soon. It's going to be discussed and then voted on, and to please support the Paws Act, that you're 100% behind it, and give the reasons for it, which is dogs are unconditionally loving and supportive, and it's so powerful for our veterans with PTSD to get a service dog that the research is in, the studies have been done, it's incontrovertible. You cannot deny that this is a very powerful, free of secondary...
Right, that's okay. The medications, yes, it's a natural, beautiful, solution as opposed to something that's medicated and drug-related and that has long-term negative consequences.
Thank you. All of the vets in our film talk about the zombification that they had, the experience of all the drugs that the VA would give them. Some of these guys on 20 and 30 meds, and they have no life. They're just zombified. And they even felt that maybe the VA had done it on purpose to keep them away, to keep them out of their hair, because it's so much trouble to deal with vets with PTSD. And that's our stain, that our government is not taking care of our vets. And this is what we have to be pushing in every possible way. And dogs is just one of them.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more, Josh. And I've seen it myself firsthand. I've seen veterans, as you said, that have coming through the process. And when they first come in to be interviewed and to start applying for a dog, and how they are so unhappy and they seem so broken and sad. And then when they go through the process and they get these amazing, intelligent, just such unconditional everything that the dogs give. You know, I love what you said about there's no judgment. You know, there's no shame. There's just love and acceptance. And what that does for no drug can do that. I'm sorry, but no drug can do that and sustain it like the dogs can. So I agree with you 150%. Well, I have to ask you, one of the other things I love about your film is that you got Bon Jovi to do a song, the song Unbroken. How did you get Bon Jovi involved to write and perform that song?
Well, we wanted to have a song that would be a really powerful song, and I sort of put the word out through connections that I have, and we got to some people at Universal Publishing, Music Publishing, and I gave them some of my suggestions, and actually Evan, who is the head of that division, said to me, you know, you want to consider Jon Bon Jovi. Now, I knew Bon Jovi, as we all do, from the 80s and 90s, and you know, his brand of rock and roll, and it didn't feel completely right to me. And he directed me to the earliest works that Jon had done and what his voice was like then, which was just one of his many possibilities. I mean, he really has a flexible voice, and he's really a very gifted artist, and he can do anything. And then coupled with the fact, as I found out, that Jon has been very, very supportive of veterans' causes, deeply so, in fact, and he would be really dedicated to it. So we sent the trailer to him with a sort of cover letter, and it's kind of a funny story. I waited a month, nothing, and I called Evan at Universal, and he said, just be patient, he's got it, I know he's interested, and so on. And then here's a good story. This is the Bon Jovi story. I was sitting in my edit room by myself, tinkering with a scene. My editor had gone home, and the phone rang. It was about 6 o'clock at night. Hey, Jon Bon Jovi here. He just called me on the phone. And he said, you know, I'm working on the song. This is the first I'd heard that he was interested, much less working on the song. And I got some questions. You have time to talk to me? So there wasn't any discussion about his doing it. He just dove in and he said, I'm on it. And we talked for 2 hours. He wanted to know my intentions, what the story was, what's the issue with PTSD? How does it work with dogs? And then within 24 hours, he was in my edit room, sitting by my side for hours at a time, watching scenes. He wanted to learn everything he possibly could about it so the song would be dead on, and he wanted it to be right. So he wrote, and I would adjust some lines, and, there, here, and there. We went back and forth. He wrote the song, but he was very open to my input because he knew that I was really knowledgeable about the issues. And he just nailed it. He really got it right, and he was totally supportive of the whole project. He loved the film, gave me a lot of input along the way, and he became a friend. I mean, it was really it was a gift.
Yeah, I was going to say that's exactly what you would want, what you would hope and want the experience to be. I actually saw him when he was debuting the song on CBS Morning Show, and he did a beautiful interview about it. And I saw the song, and that's where I learned about the film, and just loved the song, the concept, and just sharing that with the world of what that really means. And are you connected to the Patriotic Service Dog Foundation that I know Jon Bon Jovi is connected with?
Well, I'm not connected in that they're in the film. I mean, John asked me for what dog training facilities I thought were the best. And I said, look, John, there's great dog training facilities across the country. I'll just give you the ones that we worked with, and then you can look into it, because he told me that he wanted to donate the proceeds from the song to the dog training facilities.
Love it.
He said he wanted to pick one, and I didn't want to pick it for him because, I love all the facilities we worked with. And I gave them all. I gave him the websites of all. And he picked Tom Tackett at the Patriotic Service Dog Foundation. Tom's in the film. He's a veteran himself, and he's been training dogs for decades, and now focuses only on vets with PTSD. And he's out in California. And whatever reason, John was attracted to what he's doing and the size of the organization. And Tom is small. Patriotic Service Dog Foundation is small and can use the support, and John saw that. And I think another thing that got him is that Tom had spearheaded an effort called the 22-0 Foundation, which is a foundation that tries to raise awareness about the fact that 22 vets a day are committing suicide. Yeah. And that was very powerful for John as well. Yeah. So it was just a package that John, was attracted to. And we love Tom. Tom's a great man, a great trainer, and he's been very supportive of the film. He and I are going to be at the Sedona Film Festival next weekend, where To Be of Service will be screening. He's coming out with his wife and a dog, and he and I are going to do the Q&As together at the Sedona Film Festival on the 21st.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And the 25th.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, so tell us, what is it that you really want your viewers to learn from the film? What do you want them to take away from it?
Well, aside from the message about dogs, which we all know, and your viewers, your listeners all know, the power of dogs and the unconditional love of dogs, because I'm sure that's who's attracted to this show. But beyond that, my interest in the film was broad and deep, and that is the cost of war on our kids. We send these 18, 19-year-old kids off to basic training and then send them off to combat situations. The cost of it on them is profound, and we see it in the subjects in our film. 15 to 20% of veterans who come back from Iraq and Afghanistan come back with PTSD and TBI, traumatic brain injuries, and moral injury, the three invisible injuries that are so destructive. And I didn't want to make an anti-war film, because my idea is, when Hitler arises in the world, we better have a standing army to stand up for us. We need to have an army, but we need to be so careful about when we deploy troops into combat situations. And we need to be so aware of what the result is. And I just wanted a reminder to everyone of what war does to people. And I want our leaders to be reminded over and over again not to do it willy-nilly, to do everything we possibly can to avoid combat situations, between diplomacy and boycotts and all the different things that we can bring to bear. Combat should be the last.
Yeah. That is a huge message. I mean, and that is so true. And people don't realize the invisible types of injuries and devastation that people experience, like traumatic brain injury and PTSD. It's so hard when somebody's standing in front of us and they look healthy, but yet they're dealing with so much trauma that is debilitating in so many ways. Yeah. So I'm just so glad that you've talked about it and that you've shown a solution, at least part of the solution in some cases, that definitely is a positive way of supporting that person and really helping them to get their life back and to get happiness back, which is what everybody deserves. So tell us, where can we see this film? How can we find it?
Well, it's very available on Amazon Prime. You can get the film, you can stream it, you can get DVDs. It's on Netflix. If you have Netflix, it's very available there to be of service. You know, what we're hoping for, because we love to have community screenings, is that people will be so touched by it, and either before or after you see it, if you'd like to host a community screening in your area, on our website it gives you information about how to get in touch with us to do that. And we're having screenings for veterans communities, for families, for people who love dogs and want to see the power of dogs. Dogtopia, which is this wonderful organization that is a franchise across the country, 300 of them, I think, of dog boarding facilities. I was at their conference speaking, and they booked the film, and they're having it across the country, 10 screenings across the country through Dogtopia. You can check with their website, or they'll be on our website as well. So there's lots of ways to do it. Our website is tobeofservicefilm.com, and you'll see screenings that are coming up in the screening section, and it'll tell you how to get in touch with us to arrange a screening. Or, as I said, you can stream it on Amazon or get a DVD, Amazon Prime, and Netflix. Also iTunes.
Excellent. And iTunes as well. Yay. Well, thank you for sharing all that. And we'll definitely put that on our website so that our listeners, if you didn't get a chance to jot this down, you can definitely find it on our website. But again, that was tobeofservicefilm.com. So awesome. Well, Josh, we can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us, and really can't express enough gratitude for the film that you've created for so many reasons. And so really just thank you for the incredible work that you do. This is not your first film of sensitive topics, and I'm just so glad that there are people like you out there doing this great work. So thank you so much.
Oh, well, you're welcome, and thank you for the acknowledgement, and thanks for supporting us and having us on. It's really a pleasure.
Well, thank you, and thank you, our listeners, for being with us. We're so glad you could join us, and you know that we love hearing from you, so keep those emails coming, and you know you can reach us at Marcie, Marcie, at PetLifeRadio.com, and you can also follow Working Like Dogs on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So we love seeing your photos. We love hearing the stories of you and your dog and the incredible work they're doing for you every day. So please keep those coming, and we look forward to being with you again soon. Take good care.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.